Good afternoon and welcome to MedTech Crossroads. Today is Friday, September 25th. Today's our 27th episode. I don't know when we're going to stop telling you what episode number it is. Maybe we'll go a year and then we'll do that. But we're excited to have you here, and we're excited to be doing this with you. We actually do have a couple news items today. The first one is a little bit of business from last week. We had some technical difficulties with Jen Baird's recording from last week. We're going to get that posted. We've got to get that worked through, but that is going to be posted if you were looking for that and didn't see it this week. So that will be up in the near future. The other news item, I want to bring my good friend and colleague Rick Routson on live with us to share with you. Rick, are you there?
Yep.
Hey, welcome back.
Good afternoon.
We've had a lot of this has actually been good news, but somewhat unexpected. I'm going to do a screen share here for everybody. We recently came across this document from FDA, the effects of the COVID-19 public health emergency on formal meetings and user fee applications for medical devices, questions and answers. And I know both you and I were not thinking that this was going to be a great title of a document to find lots of useful info in, but it's turned into a bit of an Easter egg and a cool thing. Issued in June 2020. Can you start to take us a little bit through what's going on in this document and what it means to folks who have a application of a 510K or a PMA or a de novo?
Sure. So understandably so, FDA has obviously had to deal with the crisis where they are reviewing a lot of emergency use authorizations and have had to shift and shuttle people around. And so just like every other business in the world and in our nation, they've had to be adjusting on the fly. So this document addresses some of those things. And when you get to, there's the introduction and everything, and but they address, first of all, they acknowledge that this is happening within FDA, and so they have put down some questions that people might have with some answers. And the first ones here under meetings with industry basically have said that, look, FDA is saying, look, we're honoring meetings that have been previously scheduled. We're still interfacing with sponsors and folks that are trying to would interact with us sometimes with in-person meetings, but they've all been shifted to virtual meetings. And that's what really the first three questions are summarizing. Look, we are continuing to meet with people, however it's virtual.
And of course, anybody who's been interacting with FDA has sort of realized that we're all meeting over GoToMeeting or whatever. So, yep.
Right. So that's to be expected, though it's nice that they formally have acknowledged this. And then you get to the section B where there's some additional things going on, like MDUFA goals and timelines, and they've addressed some questions regarding particular things like PMAs, supplements, and they're saying that, look, we are going to, we're still trying to meet our goals, our performance goals that we have for the year, and we're still processing them through. But in questions 4 and 5, they really say that, in summary, we're doing the best we can. We've not given up these goals of doing things in the timely manner that we've prescribed. But just be patient with us because we have had to reshuffle matters. And then we got to question 6, which
up until this point, it sounds like good news for FDA, but nothing for the rest of us, right?
Right. So question 6 actually then relates to those of us that are not in FDA but interfacing with FDA. And this is where the Easter egg that Gene spoke of is really kind of came out. And here on the screen you can see is that for PMAs and HDEs, 360 days are given to respond to additional information letters. 510K and de novo request holds the standard response time is 180 days or for response. Otherwise, your request is automatically withdrawn. But this is where they acknowledge that in this crisis, they recognize that, especially the first 3 months from March through June, that in effect the nation was shut down, outside of having Zoom calls and things like that, to where your ability to interface with labs, test houses was really not there. And so they have acknowledged that and said that through this, that in light of this, and I think it's on the next page, it actually will say that they have automatically, they've granted, there it is at the top, that an automatic withdrawal will not happen for an additional 90 days. So what would have been 180 days before an automatic withdrawal has now increased to 270 days for PMAs or 510Ks. And I guess that would be 450 days or an extra 3 months for the de novos and PMAs. So another thing in here is that, obviously in business as usual, sponsors and applicants are able to request extensions, but it's pointed out here that it's automatic. You don't need to formally request the extension, but that 90-day extension is automatically granted based on this guidance and based on the pandemic.
So the bottom line here is if you've got an application, whether it's a PMA or a de novo or a 510K with FDA on hold because they've asked you for more information, and you're thinking, how am I going to get them that information? I've got maybe a 180-day window to get it back. The answer is you've got an extra 90 days, which is quite this never happened. So this is kind of incredible. And the funny thing is not many people know about it. We certainly didn't know about it until recently. We were talking with other nationally known regulatory folks, and they had not even been aware of it. When we started digging with FDA, it actually took quite a bit of digging before we were able to really get the full implication of this, because it's buried here, question 6 of a document that's titled maybe not as clearly as it could be. So really good news. We're thankful to the agency for the extra room in these. And if you have an application that's on hold with the agency asking for more information, you want to look at this and see the implications to your timeline. Anything else we should know about this, Rick?
Yeah, additionally, if you pan down to question 8, is a general question: what additional guidance has FDA provided? And if you go to that web page, this is what you'll see when you get there. Is it's on the FDA website, but are you able to get to it?
Yep, we'll get it here for you.
But I would recommend that if you have needs, or just as you interact with FDA on anything, and just appears to be the page that they are that we would press to go to. Okay, this is a little different than that. But see these notice of availabilities, which they are updating at least monthly, where at the bottom of the screen there, on the bullet points. And I was able to find this particular guidance that we just went through. It came out in June on the 3rd bullet point. But there are other guidances that have come out regarding a number of topics. So if you are in the business of regularly needing to, you're impacted by interactions or things you have to do with FDA, it would be worth your time looking through each of those, because they do reference and have links to multiple guidances that FDA has been submitting. And they acknowledge that due to the timing of and the urgency of things, is they've not had the ability to send these guidances out ahead of time for comments, or in a draft sense, so to speak, before they're formally issuing them. So you know, be advised that these are out there, and if you look under these links, that you might find something that will be very, will provide information that you need.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, if you've been watching the FDA feeds that come back or you subscribe to their emails, this did not make the top level of that. It wasn't something that came through very obviously. So it's really neat to see. A lot of people are not aware of this. And again, if you're in the middle of a response cycle with FDA, check this out, because it's basically giving you, in the case of a 510K, an extra 50% of your time, which is completely amazing. That's great, Rick. Anything else we should know about this?
No, I think that pretty
Well,
much covers the key stuff. So
I appreciate your hopping on. It's good to have you back on the show, Rick Routson from our team here at Into Being
you're
on
welcome.
this guidance from FDA. So we really appreciate having you, Rick.
You're welcome.
Actually, stick on for a minute. I got Ken Spencer with a question. And any other questions, feel free to raise your hand in Zoom. We'll take questions now for this news item. A question either for Rick or myself. Ken.
Yeah, so Rick, thanks a lot for the info. So it's interesting that the FDA has provided us, the submitters or something, some additional time, but I would assume it also implies that the FDA has additional time to respond back to us. Have you seen any slowdown in their responses back to people?
I can't say from firsthand experience that we have. But it's certainly understandable that as departments have been, reduced and reshuffling people, that that I would certainly expect that. I've not had firsthand experience to be able to confirm that indeed has happened.
Yeah, the worst we've had has been sort of like somebody said they're going to try to schedule a meeting for 1 week, and then it takes another week to schedule the meeting, but nothing major.
Yeah, please be patient with them, because I can imagine that they're dealing with 25, 50%, whatever more responsibilities. Those that are not directly on the COVID frontline issues to deal with. So hope that answers your.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ken. Any other questions on this? Well, it's really good news. And again, if you have an application with FDA and you're waiting to give them a response, you just got more time to do it. So it's great news. Rick, thanks for being with us to tell everyone about it.
You're welcome.
Well, next up, I want to welcome our first guest, who is my friend Frank Urban, who is the Director of Venture Creation Life Sciences for Sparton Innovations up at Michigan State University. Frank, welcome to the show.
Hi, Gene. How are you?
I'm good. We're glad to have you today. How are things up your way?
Actually, I live down by Tecumseh. We've been working home since March, so I'm a little bit southy, I believe.
Okay, well, that's good. So we're actually in the same neck of the woods. That's right. Well, that's great. So when you and I were talking, and of course, Spartan Innovations, a tech transfer and business development organization, funding, you guys are doing a lot of that. How do we get companies out the door and ideas out the door for Michigan State University? And you're a startup veteran yourself, and I know that's how we originally met in the startup world. So we come from similar stock and thinking similar ways. As you and I were talking about this in our chat today, you had said something really interesting to me. You said it's all about doing the basics and doing them well. And I thought that was really profound, because oftentimes, we'll think we've got some niche or we've got some cool angle on it. And you just basically came out and said, Gene, this whole business of getting companies started and getting ideas out is largely, let's not drop some of the basic stuff that matters as we're going through and we're vetting them and we're thinking about them and we're pushing them out the door. And you are in one of those seats where you get to see tons of companies and tons of ideas coming through, because Michigan State's got a lot happening, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I guess, Frank, from your perspective, we're talking about new venture creation and stuff like that. What are the basics in your mind?
Well, I think, you can take a look at why companies end up failing. The NSF has taken a hard look at this. Other people have taken a hard look. And when you look at, what's the major reason that companies, high-tech companies that are going for like SBIR or STTR grants, which put them in a certain class, why do they fail? The number one reason is people created something that nobody else wants. They don't have a need for it. It doesn't meet their need, or it's such an incremental improvement that they're fine with what is there. So I think one of the keys is going out and talking to the customers and finding out what the customers really want in a product. And if you don't meet what the customers want, then they're not going to buy your product, and your company is, basically, stopped before it starts. So I think, things like that, understanding your target market, who your real target is, that's something different. And then whenever we start business plans, which I think everybody needs to sit down and, map out, what is your business? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? You want to start with a simple 5 to 10 page business plan. And the reason why you want to start so simple is it's going to change. You're going to start in one direction, but you're going to have to pivot usually 2 or 3 or even 4 times before you finally get it down. So far with all the companies that we've seen, rarely have we ever seen a company that says, I'm going to move in this direction. This is how I'm going to go. Here's my customers. Start moving in that direction, and that's it. They've got their plan down. There's always changes. There's always modifications. The data will lead the way a lot of times with these high-tech technologies. So be dynamic, be pivotable, but, listen to the people that have been there and listen to your customers. I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Actually, it's an interesting question. We hadn't talked about this before, but when it comes to business plans, and we see this all the time with small startups, and we're kind of going, yeah, it's a great idea, and I can see why you'd want this, and it's good that you've got traction and people interested in it. And we'll often think to say, well, you really should put this down in a business plan and sort of and do that rigorous thinking. Because like on the regulatory side and the development side, we're saying we have to put this thinking down in a rigorous way, because that's the only way FDA is going to be able to digest it. And a business plan is kind of like that for an investor or for any partner you bring to the table. It's a rigorous way of thinking about it. How do you at an early stage recommend that teams that, again, coming from an academic background, often are technology heavy, how do you recommend that they approach that business planning process?
Well, I think it's a skill and an art. One is you got to understand the market. That's really the key. If you've already got a technology, you already know where you're going. We'll concern ourselves about the technology later, but let's make sure we know what the market's going to look like, what the target's going to look like, and how we're going to get there. And, we use all the time groups like MyLead, Searchlight out of Ann Arbor, to look at the market for us, give us a really intense look. It's also good to kind of get a third party to look at it, just because they're looking at it from a different viewpoint that might be different than yours, so you can learn something from them. So that's another really important factor. But I think you kind of want to work backwards. And I love what you mentioned about a team. And there's a reason why you want to get a stellar team that's across all business areas. And, if you've got the science side, then that's great, but there's other aspects. So let's take, like a therapeutic, for instance. You've got your biologist who's going to look at the models. You have your chemist who's going to look at the molecule. You've got your manufacturer who's going to look at, okay, what's it going to take to actually scale this up, and is it scalable? You've got your regulatory person who's going to look at the regulatory side, and it goes on and on with your clinician, with the FDA. And if you get all those people involved in the team, they're going to give you different viewpoints that you wouldn't have coming from your own viewpoint or vantage point. And business is no different as well. So that's why whenever, venture capitals or, SBIR groups, review committees and everything else look at your company, one of the first things they look at, and one of the things they scrutinize the most is who's on your team and what's the expertise you have access to. And that's really important.
Yeah, who the team is, and get them together and get more eyes on your thing. That's a phenomenal thing. So I think you mentioned to me earlier that grants even are starting to look for more customer discovery. Certainly we've seen that, and others have seen that. And that's often a hard thing for academic inventors. The average academic inventor will often have a hard time grasping the importance of customer discovery because they've been trained their entire career to look at an interesting problem and find an interesting solution to it. And the value to the market of that solution has not necessarily been a part of the question up until now in a lot of cases. I mean, for you, what percentage of your faculty do you see where they really want to be involved in a company versus the ones that are kind of like, I just want to stay behind my lab bench, or how does that break down in terms of interest levels there?
I think it depends. So every group has a different dynamic. Every group has a different, environment that they're coming from. So just as an example, if I'm dealing with somebody who's in the, I'd say the life science space, typically they're creating a product that they already know what the market is. I'm making an oncology drug for breast cancer, or I'm trying to cure NASH or something like that. So they're working towards the end goal. If you have somebody in engineering, typically they say, hey, I've got this, now where can I use it? So they're looking at it from different angles. As far as people that are interested in joining the companies, I think at least out at MSU, that's quite high. We have a great participation rate, but we do have faculty members that say, hey, I'm a scientist, I work in my lab, my passion is doing basic science, finding new things, and I don't want to join the company, but I'll consult. So either way, I think it's important to get a separate business lead into the company, someone that could be the CEO, who I wouldn't recommend would be the faculty member, and that really drives the company forward from the science side. And they can do that either in the company or they can do that from the laboratory at the university, either way. And we build the team dynamic and the company around that expectation that the faculty member has.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things that you had mentioned to me is that you guys don't do something that a lot of schools do. And that is, I think a lot of times you'll go out there and you'll see a team, and the team may be mentored by the faculty, but the transitional person is really that postdoc. It's that postdoc who did their PhD in a area, and that area is being spun out into a product, and then they go with the company, and they're the kind of hub for that. But that's something you mentioned to me isn't typical for projects that you see. Explain that to me more.
I think it just has to do a little bit more with the culture at MSU. We just don't see a lot of graduate students or postdocs coming out and joining the companies, where I think if you were to look at like University of Michigan or Wayne State, you'd probably see a lot more of that. It's a culture that we're trying to change. But, again, that, I think it's really important if you did have a graduate student or postdoc that really understands that technology. It's one thing to be looking at it from a very high level like a faculty member does. It's another thing to be looking at it from a business perspective like a CEO would. But it's another thing to get somebody who's really hungry, like a grad student or postdoc, knows how to do work with their hands, knows all the background for that technology, gets in the company, and now they're fully vested because, they're in that company now. They're trying to create their future. And that investment part of that engagement is really, really big. And that's something that we're trying to push here. I guess I'm from the outside. I should say Sparton Innovations is part of the MSU Foundation. So I'm not really an MSU employee. I'm a foundation employee. But, we've worked with a lot of investigators within the university that say, yes, I'd love my postdoc to go forward. I'd love my graduate student to go forward. And so we're trying to, make a cultural change a little bit within the system to see that happening.
And at the moment, it sounds like from our previous discussion, like your entrepreneurs and residents are really serving then a key role as the ones to pull those ideas out and through the process. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a very fair statement. And we reach out to pull in EIRs from all over the state. Our EIR program is we go out, we hire somebody 20 hours a week. It's a $50,000 a year thing. We bring them in, and then they run one of our companies. And the lure is not the money. That's not why people come in, why they're not, or why they are EIRs. The lure is going in, taking a technology, using all their experience, all their knowledge to bring that company forward and have ownership of that company and to stick with that company long term. That's really what the attraction is for them. And then hopefully, we try to foster a relationship between the faculty member and the EIR. It doesn't always work, but when it does, it's a great thing, and you see those companies just soar. And so it's a wonderful thing. And I think people underestimate how much pure talent there really is in Michigan. Because when we've knocked on the door, University of Michigan, I've gone to them many times. I think we've had 1 or 2 referrals from Wayne State, Central Michigan, or Western Michigan, also from the SBDC. When we say, hey, do you know anybody in this area that we can get to run this company? I've gotten a lot of people that have come in. And so, people I wouldn't have even thought was there, ex-Dow people, people that worked for Pfizer or Park Davis back in the day. They're still around here, and that talent pool is here. It's just you don't realize it until you look for it. And when you look for it, you find it, and it's quite surprising how much is still here in Michigan.
That's so cool that you're giving them a way to connect. I think there's so much that needs to be done just in terms of letting people know that these kinds of things are out there, right? And if you're happen to be listening to this and you're a very experienced industry person, but you don't know how to connect, most of the major universities have in their tech transfer type departments have these kind of entrepreneur, mentor, and residence programs, and it's a great opportunity to get reconnected with the world of startups. That's really cool. Frank, I think you have a mini presentation to give us. We always do things upside down here on MedTech Crossroads. We always like to just talk about the passion first and then get to the structure, but I want to give you a minute to talk about the structure of Sparton Innovations and the related programs so people have a picture of that they can go with today.
Sure, be happy to. So with that, just let me know when you see my screen so I know when to start.
Let's see, it's coming up right now. We wait with bated breath. There it is, Frank, take it away.
Okay, great. So a little thing though, just a little start about MSU. So right now where we have a record pipeline, these are the number of invention disclosures that have come through. There was a dip in 2017 and 18, but we've recovered from that now. And I'd say we're even higher. We're starting to get higher because we're starting to see more of these come through. But we get close to 200 invention disclosures per year. So that's the pool that we actually work from. And many of those, or a number of those, are ones that are fit for a startup. So we look at those. Sometimes they're ready to go now, sometimes they're not. But that's kind of where we go. And then you can see over here to the right kind of how the mix is between ag and natural resources, engineering, which is our largest. But if you look at the gray and the yellow, 27% within the health sciences and natural sciences, that's probably the largest growing unit, I think, for the university moving forward. This next slide that's coming up, I know it might take a couple of seconds, just kind of who we are. Like I said, I'm part of the Michigan State University Foundation. It's a foundation that has about $400 million in assets under management. We sit just outside the university, so we're not actually within it, which is a little different than any of the other universities in Michigan. So we operate that way just a little bit differently. And there's 4 groups that fit underneath the foundation, of which Sparton Innovations is just one. We're the venture creation arm, so we help create the startups coming out of the university. However, we also have 2 venture arms. Red Cedar Ventures is the Michigan State University's venture arm, so we invest from that. But lately, if you've been watching the news, there's a new venture firm called Michigan Rise, which is also managed by the Michigan State University Foundation. However, this is really the MEDC Pre-Seed 3 fund. So this is a statewide program, and we get applications from all over the state for funding around the pre-seed stage for this. And that's kind of interesting because that gives us an open door to the rest of Michigan. We get to see what's coming in from everywhere. And then we have different review committees that kind of look at that and decide where the funding goes from. Jeff Wesley is the executive director of Spartan Innovations, Red Cedar, and Michigan Rise. He's my boss. And you can see over here under Spartan Innovations, we're kind of bifurcated between the life sciences, which I handle, in the physical sciences. And then on the other side over here in the venture realm, underneath Jeff is Prem Badagala. He used to work for Invest Michigan and the MEDC. And then this last group over here, the University Corporate Research Park, is our real estate arm. So they run our incubators and accelerators around MSU. So the foundation kind of gives you this whole structure of commercialization, from startups to an early stage investments to I can locate my company here in this incubator with acceleration services to help move that forward. But since there's only two of us moving all these startups forward, we can't do it alone. So the next slide coming up is just kind of a list of our entrepreneurs in residence. Most of them have 20 plus years experience in industry. Half of them have PhDs, but these are the guys that really are the boots on the ground because they join our companies. Most of them are CEOs within the companies, and they're really the ones that are the ones that are hungry, that go out there, that move these companies forward and do the day-to-day grind. And Brad and I kind of go into each one of them and kind of assist them, probably pretty heavily in the beginning. We have a very strong relationship in the beginning, but as these guys start getting momentum, then the idea is to just kind of get out of their way. We can check in with them every now and then, but if they don't really need us and they're making good progress on their own, I don't want to go in there and bother them and micromanage too much. So, we kind of give them their own way. And then the next slide that's going to come up kind of just gives a summary of, whenever we have a new company that pops up, the foundation helps us with advocacy in the state and resources. They work very closely with a number of different groups, including MEDC, SPDC, and I can go on and on. And then Sparton Innovations is the first one that gets them. We put the plan and the people and the consulting together. Then we can put some of Red Cedar's early stage funding into that. When they get more advanced, we can apply for Michigan Rise just like every other university in the state. We could house these facilities at our University Corporate Research Park groups like our Van Camp or Technical Innovation Center incubators. We work very closely with the MEDC Smart Zones because they have different programs, advocacy, resources, and consulting, so we make sure that we bring them in. And then, of course, there's Michigan State University, which is really a research powerhouse. We do over $600 million of federal research per year. We've got strong corporate relations, capabilities, and talents within the university that we can utilize, so we utilize that. And then the other thing is we reach out throughout the ecosystem. So the next slide is just kind of a lot of partners that we work with quite a bit. And this is just a spattering of some of the partners that we work with because, again, we're small. We can't do it all. And in the areas where there's already expertise that exists in the state, we don't want to do it all. We want to fit the areas where we, that are missing, not the areas that are already there. So even though, you think of Michigan State University as kind of being that university off in the center and maybe a little bit west of the state, we work very closely with programs over at the University of Michigan, like MyLead, the Center for Entrepreneurship, the Midwest I-Corps program. We work with some of the incubators around, like Rocket Labs down in Jackson, Star Garden in the right place over in Grand Rapids, even Tech Town over in Detroit. We work with a number of hospital systems. I'd say the closest ones we work with is McLaren and Spectrum Health. But BBC is one we use a lot because we do a lot of SBIRs and STTRs. But again, we don't stand alone. We have to rely on all of our partners into being one that's working on a number of projects with us. And we're very grateful for that because you guys bring expertise that we just don't have. Kind of going next. This is a slide, it'll be coming up in a second about the key metrics. This is one I'm very proud of because I came to Sparton Innovations about 4 years ago from Wayne State University. And one of the things that we started to focus on was grants. So especially SBIRs and STTR grants. And when I came in, if you look at these grant submissions over here on the left, there was almost none. We really didn't submit any grants. And then we started getting heavily into it. And then as you can see over here with the grant totals, it just went up dramatically. 2020 was a short year because we had a director leave, so I was the only one within Sparton Innovations. But now we have a new director, Dr. Brad Fingland on the physical science side, and we're on course to break a record this year, somewhere around $3 to $4 million. So it's been great for us. We have companies at all kinds of different stages. We reach into the university, which is the discovery stage, all the way around to fully launched, which means we're taking companies from Spartan Innovations and shoving it over into the Red Cedar portfolio because now they're ready for larger investment from the investment community, which is a great thing. And this is just kind of a show of, or an example of some of the companies that Red Cedar has put much larger investments in. We utilize a pre-seed fund, which is renewed every year for about $750,000, but it also has an opportunity fund of about $10 million that it puts in major investments into companies. These are just some of them. And you can see Michigan Rise, which just started early September, has already started making major investments, and some of those coincide between both Red Cedar and Michigan Rise, which is nice. But again, Michigan Rise is really active in going out there and investing throughout the state. So if people are interested in that, you can let us know, or you can let Jeff Wesley know, and we'll go ahead and let you know how you can submit your applications. But we've also reached out beyond that, and please, Gene, tell me if I'm taking up too much time.
No, you're fine.
We also
We'd love to hear
started.
this.
Okay, we also started a Conquer Accelerator program. So this was in East Lansing. This was the 5th year that we've run it, but we're also over in Grand Rapids now. That's in the 2nd week of the program. And these are programs that, for the most part, are outside Michigan State University. They're from the ecosystem. And in East Lansing this past year, we changed the program up. We added SBIRs and STTRs to it. We added a 21 seminar series. Probably a lot of people on this call were part of that, because the idea is not to get me in there and speak, but the idea is to get people from throughout the ecosystem to come in and speak to our teams, because we want them to be successful beyond this 10-week program. But it's a very intensive 10 weeks. It's from 8 in the morning to about 5 at night. We've invested in the last 5 years, $500,000, now $600,000 in 30 companies, because we just started Grand Rapids. But out of the 25 from East Lansing, 20 are still in operation. This number is a bit old, but out of the companies that have gone and raised additional dollars, it's now over $3 million, with about 50 jobs created in the state. And we've already had two successful exits. So this is something that we've done even outside the university, which we think is great. During this year, this year alone, we created 13 FTE jobs and 6 part-time contractor jobs. We had to convert to a virtual format because of COVID, but we were successful at that. We had 3 of the 5 companies come into MSU and start working with the faculty. So this does come back to MSU, which was the whole goal of this. 2 companies were signing revenue-generating contracts in the program. One of the companies in the program ended up increasing their revenues by almost 25% during the program because of their sales and marketing efforts. We had 38 engagements, 21 of them were unique, and these engagements, for the most part, were into the community, which is what we want to do. We want to get local people working with these companies so that they can start building out their networks. And out of all the companies that we did this year, 2 companies are now targeting SBIR and STTR grants. And this next one, I just want to give a shout out to these teams. The Patient Company and Airway Innovations came out of Spectrum and GVSU. And then we have 2, these are our 2 medical companies, and we also have 3 SaaS companies that are coming out of Conquer and Grand Rapids. This is probably the strongest group that we've had to enter Conquer as a whole, and we're looking forward to a lot of good things from them. But with that, I'll just kind of shake it up and finish up here. These are just some of the companies that we're launching right now that we're focusing on, and they're everywhere from therapeutics to IT to agriculture and physical science and engineering. So we're pretty dynamic in our offerings for being such a small group. So with that, I think that's really all I have.
That's awesome.
But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we appreciate you giving us that overview. If you do have a question for Frank, please do raise your hand or stick it in the Q&A as you prefer. I think it's really cool and dynamic what you guys have happening there, and there's lots of neat links going on there. I often find it's hard to keep track of all these different things, and we like to have folks like you, Frank, come on and show us what that roadmap looks like and what all the interconnections are, because there's just a wealth of connections to be had all throughout the state of Michigan, and you guys sit with a lot of those, so we're thankful for that. I'm not seeing any immediate questions here. So, we do have one from Ken Spencer, our good friend Ken Spencer, U of M MCirc. Ken, you're live.
Yeah, so Frank, thank you very much. I'm a, graduate, if you will, of tech transfer at U of M, and now over at MCirc. I don't know if you know us over there in the emergency medicine department, but I'm interested in the Conquer Accelerator thing here. Do you provide like an overall CEO, CFO approach under that accelerator? Because I've always been kind of thinking that we're missing a thing I always used to call a commercialator, where some of the startups could go, but trying to find an individual CEO or CFO for each company for each potential startup was hard. I'm just wondering if the Conquer Accelerator provides some overarching kind of management, or is it just where each company, just a funding mechanism for each company?
It's definitely not a funding mechanism, but usually we're putting out, so for instance, in East Lansing, we had 28 teams apply. In Grand Rapids, we had 23 teams apply. It is competitive. Only 5 teams, can be selected at the end of the day for each of the cohorts for those. We don't go out and do the CEO matchmaking per se in that program. We're looking for a team that's complete and now just needs to go through, as Gene was saying, kind of that basic regimen, and we carry them forward through that regimen. So we do the customer discovery, the business model canvas. We move forward to the target market. We start looking at their COGS. How much is it going to cost to create this? What do you have to do in development? What's your market look like? What's your competition? We do all of that intensively as we go through the program. And it's kind of a program that we can also tailor to the company so they can come in at different stages and we can move forward. One of the things that we do have an issue with, and this is even for the companies coming out of MSU, and maybe I'm hoping this addresses your issue, is when we do go out and we're looking for CEOs or CFOs or other members of the company. Coming into a startup, it's really difficult because it's hard to give them a salary base. And I think every startup deals with this is you don't have a lot of money coming in the door. So how do you attract people and how do you retain people in that environment? And one of the ways that at least we preach on how to do that is to give them an equity stake. And so, typically you bring somebody in, they're going to be the CEO, they're going to be running things. The founders have to be willing to give up an amount of equity to that person that's going to compensate them for the lack of salary. So, I'll just throw out a wild example. Let's say somebody comes in as a CEO and we say, okay, we're going to give this person 25% of the company over 2 years. I wouldn't just give them the equity. Usually we do a bifurcated equity system, which means on one line, they go out and they, do certain documents, they get 5% or maybe 3%. If they get an SBIR, maybe they get 5%. If they do a couple of things that are in the development timeline that's going to add value to the company, they earn percentages. But you also want to make sure that if the longer they stay in the company, they're also getting compensated on a time basis. And the reason for that is if the company has to pivot, and let's say there's something wrong with the science that they have no control over, they shouldn't be penalized for that. So they should still be able to build equity with their longevity within the company. So, they're still building equity for the time that they serve, even though they're not able to meet those other milestones. And then after 2 years, all the founders can sit there and, talk and say, okay, well, we gave you 25% of the company, but now we're going to look for the next set of milestones. And maybe we issue more stock, go down that line. But it's always got to be, it's always about compensation and incentives of bringing these new people into a startup company. And it's a difficult discussion to have, but it's a good one to have. Because even, if I switch my roles from a startup to a investor, and I'm looking at a company, and I see that the CEO of that company is not making very much of a salary, and they're not really getting any equity, and I'm going to invest in that company. The first thing I'm going to say is, why isn't that guy getting a proper salary, or why isn't he vested in the company with equity? Because the first offer he gets from another company, he's gone. And you're going to basically be rebuilding your company over and over again because you're going to have high turnover. I don't want to invest in that. So it's very important to have the right incentives in place. The same thing happens with, vendors. I'll just throw this out real quick. There's a lot of startup companies that want to sit there and keep pushing vendors to give them free services. Well, after a while, those vendors are going to get upset and say, hey, we can't just keep doing this for free. We got to make some money too. So actually sitting down and having the discussion with vendors and being frank and saying, this is what I can offer, is a great way to build a relationship with vendors. Otherwise you're going to run out of people that you can turn to when times are tough. So I hope that answers your question, Kenneth. If not, I can expound.
Well, it does, and I think we all face the same issue. I've always looked on the universities as being actually great accelerators, if you will, because we have some funding mechanisms. I mean, where we work, we have the Massey Foundation, which gives us $14 million to work on severe TBI. And so we're able to fund things that nobody else would fund. And then we go after, additional outside funding from DOD or SBIR or STTR or even MTRAC and other things that you're familiar with. But the issue is when it's ready to go out, we have the same issue of trying to find CEOs or CFOs who have the ability to work for just equity, kind of thing. So that's where this idea of a commercialator where you had, because we all those life science things, they need a CEO, a CFO, they need an FDA consultant, they all need the same thing. And if they could be spread out over 6, 7, 8, potential companies, you could really limit or even attract a CEO, CFO to some kind of arrangement like that. So I don't know. It's a hurdle that we all seem to have in moving these things forward.
What I like about this is it really gets back to the basics that you were talking about at the beginning, Frank. And this is a basic that a lot of times people don't think about, but you do have to build a platform upon which you can move forward. You've identified some places where that's sometimes a little shaky in a lot of efforts.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the CEO part, it's you have to build a network, and as far as getting you talked about getting the regulatory and everything else. It's all about knowing where to turn to. SBDC has their tech team have a number of services. We utilize them all the time. Lindsay Klee on the regulatory side. We work with Dave Grossman when it comes to ethnography, looking at IP landscape and road mapping. I mean, we utilize that team very heavily. And, one of the problems with startup companies is when they start, they don't know who does what. And I think part of our job is knowing, if there's a need within a company, who could fill that need? Where do we take these people to sit there and, plug them in, so to speak? And, it's always annoying in this job to have salespeople, constantly plugging you. But I love salespeople because if they're coming to me and they have a skill set that my companies need, I want to be aware of them so that I can sit there and say, here's the people that I know play in that space. Because in my job, it's all about getting the right resources to the people that need it.
That's great.
That's probably about 30% of what I do.
That's great, Ken. Thank you for the question. We appreciate it. We've also got a question here live from Kevin McLeod. Kevin, you're live.
Thanks, Gene. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
Perfect.
Yep.
Listening with great interest to Frank, as well as encouraged by Stephen's question. So the two of you know I have a 2-year-old startup in Kalamazoo, med device, obviously, company that we actually acquired a product from Stryker. But I kind of want to plant a seed for both of you to think about not only individuals, but small organizations when looking at moving technology from university setting. I've had the pleasure of working with MTRAC and MCirc and Kevin Ward in Ann Arbor in different roles, and having the ability to have an entire organization move that along really changes the paradigm a bit. And so, and I'm happy to go into more detail. I don't think it's necessary on this call, but just want to put that out to the both of you to think a little bit broader than just individuals and the opportunity. For instance, our company, we've got 5 former Stryker folks in sales, marketing, operations, R&D, and regulatory who are have a ton of experience that can really move some technology along. There, it's a bit of a shameless plug, Gene, but I just want to.
Hey, no, it's great, Kevin. What you guys are doing at C2DX is really cool, and we'd love to have you on the show sometime to talk about it, because I think we could have a very interesting sort of bookend, because you guys are at a little bit later stage than that early stage transfer, and it's a really important one because it's a big part of the ecosystem. So yeah, we'd love to follow up with you on that.
Thanks, Gene.
Great. And Frank, I think I'm not seeing any more questions here. I want to thank you for coming on today and talking with us. We love what you guys are doing at Sparton Innovations, and I'm glad that we can just help to get the word out there about all the cool things you guys are doing. We're actually going to have Preem and Jeff on towards the end of October. They're going to be coming on and telling us about Red Cedar Ventures. So we'll sort of hear the other side of that discussion as well, which you've so nicely kicked off for us today.
All right. Well, thank you, Gene, for having me, and it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, good to see you, Frank.
All right. Take care, sir.
Talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Next up, I want to welcome to the show Joe Perraut of Blue Earth LLC. Joe, can you bring yourself live there?
Let's see, can you hear me?
There's Joe. Welcome to
Okay.
MedTech Crossroads, Joe. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Gene. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so Joe, you and I were talking, and you and I think it was your brother actually, have been sometimes attenders on this show. And you and I got to talking, and I did a little bit of due diligence on your company. And Blue Earth, really interesting because you guys actually have an office in Grand Haven, Michigan. And I thought it'd be neat for our audience to hear about this link where you guys are trying to do plant-based derived hand sanitizers. And you're not kind of looking at that really short-term market like, ooh, we got to run something out under an EUA and get it out there just to capitalize on this thing. But you're really looking at a more sustainable model that says hand sanitizers are drying people's hands out. We can do better than that, and we can use things that are derived from farmed products and so forth. So I thought it'd be fun to have you on and tell folks about your Michigan ties and your farm ties and what the product is and what you guys are working on.
Fabulous. And I really appreciate Frank's presentation, and I appreciate what you do, Jane, to bring in varieties. I'm coming from outside some of the eco that you're, from the really, the focuses that's came about with MedTech. And so I'll show and share in a second where I'm coming from. But there's certainly an overlap. And then I'm excited to look at the long view to share a little bit what I think, what's next a little bit, and how I got here. Because this started pre-COVID, some of this, but this obviously instigated as well. So if you'd
That's
like,
great.
just jump into that.
Yeah, go ahead and do your
share.
presentation share there. That'd be great.
All right, let's. Let me get this open. Okay, how does that look? Okay, can you see?
That is just fine. Yeah, we've got your last slide up, I think, right now.
Okay.
There we go.
So, yes, the name of the company is called Blue Earth, based out of Grand Haven, Michigan. What I will share with you a little bit is how we got here to our introduction to 100% plant-based hand sanitizer, what we think it means going long-term to the industry, and what we feel is a new standard for health in this area. But where I'm coming from, and this all started prior to COVID, was, and it'll help you to see where my background is a little bit, because it's coming out of not the med tech industry. It's more into what I call the big box industry. So my background has been traditionally in consumer products. I grew up in the business. So since I was 10, stocking shelves on product, it was essentially, what I saw was products really coming from all over the world. And traditionally, that's been what you see when you go into big box stores today still. But I share this with you because I want to share the last slide, which is talking a different story or vision towards what could be next. And in this area of hand sanitizer plus other agricultural opportunities. And as examples, some of these are just a few customers that I work with over a period of time. I list out some Michigan-based customers there too. Products in the consumer area we brought to market. I mentioned at the bottom, we've been Inc. 500 in some of the consumer products we brought to market, Inc. 5000 over the last several years, working from minimalist to taking something to a larger entity. So that's the intent with Blue Earth as we start this new beginnings. So But where it started from really was looking at the marketplace. And if you think about, as we pre-COVID, you had certain amount of material available, and that's what it was. And then, holy cow, no one could get any through this situation. And then today, there's more prevalent product out there. But just like every thing that happens in terms of marketplace, new questions come up. And part of the questions that I've been getting at that initial stage was, what's in my hand sanitizer? What am I putting on my hands? What's the choice I do have? Well, at one time you didn't have a choice. You just could get what you could get. So what we did is look at how we could bring something to the market for what's next. And that's what we hope Blue Earth represents. So what to us means what's next is hitting the key points, which is you have to be safe. And that's Blue Earth. We stand for BE, be safe, be effective, be natural, and be healthy. And we do this through, as a company, Blue Earth stands for bringing new products of the earth. So anything that's plant-based. So safe and effective. So here, obviously, you have to be able to provide a effective killing for illness and illness-causing germs and viruses, and we've been independently tested for that with our 100% plant-based proprietary mix. You have to be safe. You need a mitigation tool, but you need something that's going to be safe, and we've have it independently tested to make sure we do the job one, which is take care of safe and effective first, and we've accomplished that. We're FDA, our facilities FDA compliant. We meet and exceed all the standards that are out there. Things you hear in the news about methanol, for example, also denaturing the product so it's safe for children, for example, or safer for unintentional ingestion. So be safe and effective, and then we go to be natural and healthy. So, we believe what you apply to your skin matters. And we, as a 100% plant-based proprietary mix, it's friendly for your skin, especially for those on the front lines that are using it daily. We produce our own formula that offers not only hygiene, but skincare, and derived from plants. So when you apply it, we call them almost like an oil gel. And I think I shared a bit of that with you, Gene, as well, in terms of a sample. So you could see what I was talking about when I introduced this to you. But it moisturizes naturally. We do put extra emollients in it, so it gives you the added layer without weighing you down. So it's safe on sensitive skin. Doesn't gives users basically peace of mind. They're not putting unnecessary chemicals on their skin. So this gives you an example of what some of the components are in it. No conventional chemical additives. The ethyl alcohol is made from plant sugars. The thickening agent we're using is from cotton. All the moisturizing agents are natural oils of aloe vera and an oil-based or plant-based fragrance as well. So when you apply it, it feels different and than normal gel, I would say. But within 15 to 30 seconds, same time as normal sanitizer, it goes away, poof, it's gone. Use your hands feeling a layer of moisture, moisturized and fresh. So part of the trend for us as a company is to look at what's important for our customers, that where we come from. And I showed the first slide some of those examples of customers. They want to be on trend. So this is just a little bit about how we keep this product is seen as being on trend and what our traditional market has been. And obviously hand sanitizer grows across all channels today, but I'm just kind of marketing this concept towards what we see in the traditional consumer market people are looking for, which is, what's the general direction for hand sanitizer as a whole, skincare, homeopathics. Consumers consider anything, tend to perceive all natural products as safe, not having adverse effects, and trustworthy. And so that's our goal when we look at this Blue Earth in terms of the products we're bringing to market. Am I going too fast here, Gene? I'm just kind of running through.
No, you're fine. We'd love to hear one or two more slides and then
Yeah.
see if there's any questions.
So just a little bit, we're doing multiple sizes, and this is a little bit towards the end here. So essentially, my intent as a company is that our vision is to accelerate the advent of world-class, healthy, and sustainable commercial and home products. So that's overarching theme. And it really, since we're a plant-based company, we're looking to see how we can create products that are healthier and more affordable, raise standards of living, because I look at Michigan as a great opportunity to partner with the farming community and create products that we can bring to market that are not here today. Part of this is healthier, more sustainable biodiversity in terms of the soil health, reducing pollutants, improved water management. These all come through plant-based opportunities that we could bring to market. You know, results we see in Michigan is economy, jobs, agriculture, sustainability, bringing manufacturing, distribution, and helping local communities. So that's kind of the big picture. On the right, I give you an example. We partnered with a Michigan company through my friend Rich Doherty to bring some dispensers to market. Obviously, people need a way to use hand sanitizer, but an economical way to use it. So this is an example of a Michigan company we're partnering with to bring a value added to a customer that needs to have, if you're, let's say, at a church or at a place that needs to have an easy way, an inexpensive way to access, or restaurants, a sanitizer. This is a floor stand that works with a foot pedal. So you can either use your foot, you don't have to touch it. So it's low tech, or you can use your elbow on the top of it, for example. So the idea is make it wheelchair friendly, could be rolled over to access as well. So just an example of things that will roll in together under Blue Earth.
Oh, that's great. Joe, I love the vision. It's there's so many times it's like we got to rush something out there, and what you guys are doing is looking that next step ahead and saying, okay, things that don't chap your hands, things that can be made, in places like Michigan. The fact that it's plant-based, really cool vision here, and we certainly wish you the best. If anyone has any questions for Joe, feel free to raise your hand in the meeting here. We do have one question from Ken Spencer. You're live. Also going to be one from Olaf right after Ken.
So thanks, Joe. Joe, listen, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Scott Van Epps at the University of Michigan, an MCERT guy there, but he's really interested in a lot of material science activities here, and he has developed a sanitizer for equipment in the patient's rooms and things there. I'm not sure whether it's plant-based or not, but I would think he would be very interested in what you're doing. Do you know him at all?
I do not. It would be terrific if you'd be able to forward that contact. That would be wonderful.
I'll count on Gene to can you send me Joe's contact?
Absolutely. We'll get you guys connected. It's one of our favorite things to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Olaf, you're up next. But you're on mute. Oops, let's see. Trying again. Olaf, are you there?
I think I'm there now.
Yes, wonderful.
Hello, hi Gene. All right.
Good. How are you doing? It's good to hear your voice.
Doing well. All healthy here so far. Good. So I love the mission of Blue Earth, and specifically also the area of hand sanitizer and so forth. And over the last months, I've also worked with companies with innovative products. Ironically, or sometimes it feels almost guilty to have work business in this area, but also with sustainable project and business objectives. when you were sharing your vision right now for a healthy Michigan, healthy environment, better paid farmers, and so forth. I mean, this is very aspirational, and I get it, but I'm wondering, is it? And I'm not being ironic. I'm just really curious and hoping I can learn something. But how does this help you now to get the business kicked off, to start growing the business, to grow volume? Because only once you have the money available from sales will you be able to afford sustainable things that involve also the community and fight for farmers, making more product for some of your Blue Earth product, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded.
That's okay. Thank you, Olaf. A great question, and I agree with you. The intent there was to be aspirational, but intentional. The focus will be delivering what we have available today, but the intent is that the vision started pre-COVID. I'll just share that with you. There's other things more than this webinar could cover that were in the works, but part of that deals with working to hit those marks, which I think we can deliver. But this post-COVID, with the introduction of this product, I can see those overlapping. So you're right. You have to. I love Frank's vision, where you have to set your sight on where you're heading and have a roadmap. And along the way, you're not gonna stick to that, because there are going to be things along the way that will knock you in a different direction. It doesn't mean your end goal is not the same. And so I can really appreciate that as you listen to your customers and where you're going to head to. But I started talking about a little bit my background in terms of dealing with overseas, which has been just where that industry has been globally here in the U.S. And I just foresee an opportunity here with agriculture that we can bring industry here. And there's been other areas that have opened up, and I don't want to get too specific today, that I can see where Michigan could be part of that production. I am hyper-focused here on hand sanitizer because it is so critical, and that'll be job one. And I'm not sure if I hit your mark exactly, but you have to make a start and you expand from that point. But I think working with farmers here, everything we have the potential to add value to a plant-based product could be done here.
Yeah,
Great.
Just a quick, I mean, I think it fits great with what, Stephen Covey, right? I don't know how much he's read nowadays still, has outlined, for individuals, families, and businesses. So these aspirational goals and these mission statements, they really help as a compass for everything that you do. So I do appreciate that. A very quick, specific question. Offering a product always involves some sort of packaging, at least a physical product. For example, for like bottles that you showed in your slides for containing hand sanitizer, for example, very often nowadays those are made out of polyethylene, and just moving to biopolyethylene, for example, wouldn't be really that much of a sustainable choice. So I'm wondering if you, I'm sure you are aware of, but polylactic acid, PLA polymer or plastic, which is arguably compostable, biodegradable, but at least it's based on farming agriculture products like corn. So I don't know if you've thought about the packaging area as well.
Make the whole thing from the farm. Just get it all from the farm, including the packaging. I like that.
Right, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's all. Those are, as you get excited about where things are at and you say, where could we go next? That's very logical. We'll have to be looking at how do we, because that's a big important thing today in the marketplace. People are looking to see how to be more a sustainable package as well. And that's certainly a direction. Yep.
That's great. Olaf, thanks for the questions and suggestion. Love it.
Thanks for the show.
I appreciate you being here and making it a great part of it. Wink, you're up next. But you're muted, I think. Let's try again. Wink, I think you're live with us if you can unmute.
How about now?
Now is great. It's good to have you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Joe, I've had the opportunity to use your sanitizer, and I just wanted to say how much I like it. I don't feel like I'll have to pass a breathalyzer test after I use it. And it goes away a lot quicker than the other guys. It leaves my hands feeling a lot smoother.
Excellent. Well,
Well,
thank
there
you.
you go. There
Yeah,
you go.
thank you, Wink. Appreciate that.
That's great. We appreciate it. And Wink's been a frequent listener, so we appreciate your chiming in there, sir. Thank you. Great. Well, let's see if we got any more questions or comments. A lot of good feedback here. We already sent the email to Ken and Joe, so you guys should both be receiving that. I guess if nothing else, Joe, we're really excited to have had you on today, and excited for your vision, and it's catches the attention, obviously. So we wish you the best, and if there's any way that we can help to connect you to the community in the future, let us know.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for coming on, Joe. Appreciate it. We had one more question. I'm going to invite everybody, if you do have a question, type it into the Q&A or raise your hand. Any question, anything we've covered, maybe it's all the way back to a previous show or to what we were talking about earlier with the FDA's guidance on extended timelines for 510Ks, PMAs, and de novos. But we did have a question from Robin about Arbor Hive, and we just happen to have Nikki Kennedy on the call today. Nikki, I'm going to welcome you back.
Hey, Gene, how you doing?
Hey, Nikki. Welcome back. We're looking forward to having you next week. We can do a little shameless plug here that From the Front Lines is going to be October 2nd, and you and I are going to be talking all about the next installment of From the Front Lines, doctors' opinions and what they see as felt needs. So we're really looking forward to that. But we had a question here from Robin. She said, and this was during Frank's panel, she said, Arbor Hive is a new initiative for physicians to give ideas or be part of innovation. How does this fit into the ecosystem for funding for physician startup companies? So we'd love to have you remind everybody what Arbor Hive is and also answer her question.
Always appreciate it. So as we've talked about before, Arbor Hive is a nonprofit network that we have cobbled together of physicians who are interested in the innovation process and who want to help get involved early. We found that by putting some physician input into an idea during its design phase can oftentimes help alleviate some of the false starts or improve some of the enhancements as things are going along so that companies aren't spinning wheels so much. It also gives docs a chance to come up with better technology, hopefully, that we can bring to patients in the future as things come to market and go through the commercialization process. So I actually just shot a message off to Frank. I know he and I connected, it's been a couple of years, so hopefully he and I can connect again. But basically what we're trying to do is connect with accelerator groups, and we've connected with Gene and his connections as well, to try to bring our physicians and the young startup companies together so that we can start doing some kind of catalyst here to improve that communication process and get some higher quality tech out. So we're trying to do this through a few different avenues. We've got a lot of docs who are interested and already part of the network. Our advisory board actually has just come up with a series of topics for the new My Pitch event that the University of Michigan, Dr. Mark Cohen had put on before. We're going virtual with that, and he's asked if Arbor Hive would help co-sponsor that. So that's coming up on Tuesday, October 20th, for another shameless plug.
Hey,
so if anyone's out there interested in connecting with docs, we'd love to have you guys come out for a brainstorming event. We're coming up with some topics for people to start working on for that evening. And again, you and I are going to be chatting next week, Gene. And if there's anyone out there who's interested in connecting with physicians, anyone who's interested in trying to improve that customer discovery, we'd love to talk to you. Again, we are a nonprofit. So the docs are doing this because we love it and we want to share our clinical knowledge. It's not anything that they get paid for. It's not anything we accept money for at this time. So again, if there's anything we can do to try to make those connections, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's important to point out, like what Frank was talking about with Sparton Innovations, you're going to get, if you're a doctor, for example, at MSU, or we had others in the past from other universities, you are going to get connected through these kind of tech transfer programs to many people who are not like you, but they can help you because it takes this community, this ecosystem. Something like Arbor Hive, if you are a doctor, it's a great place to get connected, to share those stories and say, okay, I am a doctor, this is my mindset. Who do I need to be talking to, and how, like, what should I be aware of? What should I push forward, et cetera? So I think it's just a great thing and very synergistic. So we're excited for that. We'll see you next week, Nikki.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gene.
Thanks again. Okay, last 30 seconds for any questions you might have. If not, another great show. We appreciate having you on. Coming up in future weeks, we mentioned coming up next week from the front lines, we've also got Russell Yankee from who's been a long-time quality and regulatory person in our local community. Upcoming weeks, we've got Scott Mers from MC3s. We've got Andy Rader from M&A Partners. That's going to be a not-to-miss one. And we've got Prem Badogla and Jeff Wesley from Red Cedar Ventures, to name just a few. It's been great being with you today. See you next week.